We're going to go ahead and get started today. So I'll make sure everybody has themselves muted. If you have any questions, there's a chat button down at the bottom, and Ann, our head of customer support, is on today, and she can kind of answer any questions as you go, but I'll try and stop every now and again and ask if something's clear or we need to backtrack a little bit. So last week we kind of did an overview of the platform and some of the functionality with the /share and some of that, and I'll quickly touch on some of that again, just as a refresher for some of you guys. But if you haven't watched the video from our training last week, I would go watch that, because that's going to give you a really broad overview. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about the website and exactly how we're going to be able to start configuring the website. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So there's a couple of things as we talk about the websites when you first log in. So as a reminder, the way that you're going to log into your site is from your site. If you just go all the way down to the footer, there's a button that says Agent Login, and that's going to get you into the builder itself, so the website builder. So it's when you first log in here, you're going to see a screen like this, and it's going to typically, you're probably just going to have one site. It's going to have your website here, and you have the ability to edit the site here. You can change your template. Don't delete it. That's very bad. It will allow you to do that, but if you delete it, your website will be gone, and then you'll call me up with tears in your eyes saying, "Hey, can you help me get my website back?" And we can. If something tragic does happen and you can't get it back, we have backups that we can pull from a previous day and bring that back up for you. So editing the site, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about first. One of the main things with any site is the search page. And this is the page where most of your customers are going to spend a lot of their time. And so there's a couple of different things that you can configure with the search to get it how you want it and get it kind of set up in different ways. And so I'm going to walk you through that first on how to kind of configure the way that this search page is set up, because there's a couple of different options here for how you want this to look. Now, there's obviously, I've got this set up as a split view by default. You can also set it up if you want it to be a gallery view or a map view. So there's kind of some different options there for the defaults that you have on there. You can also set this up so it has a custom URL. So for instance, if I want it to be specific to a certain city, or something like that, I can change all those things. So when I go in to edit my website and I go here and I click on edit, it's going to take me to my pages here. So these are all the pages that are currently on my site. And you can see the page here. There's a little indication of whether that page is visible or not visible. So the page I'm looking for is my search page here. And you can grab these and reorder these if you want these in a different order. You just grab this little arrow button here and move it up the page. So if I want to change the order of those, I can drag pages underneath another page. And what that'll do is make it so this is basically the main page with sub pages underneath it. Okay. And if I don't want it, I can drag that back out. So a couple of things here, a couple of key indicators here. Down this side, the left-hand side, you have things like site details, which is the name of the site, whether or not your SEO pages are enabled or you do forced registration. And I'll come back and talk about a couple of these things through here as we kind of go through this. So themes, like what colors are being used. So for you guys, your themes are already preset. The colors are already preset. You really don't have to do anything with it. If you want to change it, you can. It's very simple. Like if you want to change your menu links, you just come in here and select the color that you want to use and make sure you save the theme. And then as with anything on our websites, like after you've done something, you're always going to publish it. So, and the publish page always sits up here at the top right-hand corner. So let's talk a little bit about configuring this search page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the right-hand side, and I'm going to hit this little gear icon here. This is going to let me edit the page, update the page link, duplicate it, or change the page settings. And I'll talk about a few more of these options here in a minute. But the main one you're going to use is edit page. And when I go to edit page, I'm going to see my header across the top here. This is the search block. Now, it doesn't look like the search block because it's just a static kind of holder image. But across the top left hand here, you're going to have three options. There's blocks, content, and details. Okay, I'm going to select on details. Now, content allows you to edit things like text. If I want to change the text on something, details allows me to change the options on it. And then blocks allows me to duplicate a block, delete a block, you know, those sorts of things. So I'll go into that a little bit more, but so I'm going to double select on this, and it's going to give me a couple of options here. So I've got search template, and I've got dark mode, and I've got light mode. Okay. And to give you an idea of what that looks like over here on my test site, this is light mode. So the text sits below the images. My favorite button is down here. It's just a little bit lighter. Dark mode, which is the default for all of your sites. The text sits over the image with the bed and bath, you know, below it. And so it's basically just a different look, right? So if you want it to have a slightly different look with this kind of what we call light mode, you can change that option there. So first of all is, you know, so I'm going to go ahead and switch this to light mode. Then you could, by default, can select the view. So do I want them to see the hybrid view, the map view, or the gallery view? And that's just the difference between, you know, this view here, which is the gallery view. You know, I could give them a full map view. So if I want it to be default to a map like this, I can set that, or I can set the hybrid view, which is the map on one side and the gallery on the other. I like this view the most. This is one that I tend to usually go with. So I'm just going to come back in here and say, you know, I want hybrid view, and I could also determine if I want my listings to always show it first. So if I select this to be newest, for instance, it'll always have whatever the newest listings in my MLS are, and it's configured that way by default. And you'll see that these match up with my filter options on the site, right? So this is featured right now. So it has all of my listings that show up here first. And you do that by having your MLS ID, your agent ID, or your office ID in the system. And if you don't already have that preset, like, you can let our customer support know, and they can go in and set that for you so that you have that put on there. But a lot of people also do newest too. So that'll just be, you know, whatever the newest and the latest listings are, you know, by default. So there's a couple options there in terms of how you configure that. So let's say I'm gonna do newest. I can also set my map location. So what this is when I'm in map view, let's say, for instance, my MLS covers all of Florida or a large area, but I only really work a couple of cities. You can go in here and choose the city, and I've got this set up for Utah where I'm at. So I'm going to put it for my city, and I can set the zoom level for like how close into that city do I want it versus how far out I want it. So that's called your zoom level. So I can kind of begin to configure these, and I click on save. So you'll see at the bottom of these blocks that come out, I'm always going to hit save. Then I'm click on save on my window here. And then I can hit publish, and it'll go publish the site for me. And then I can refresh my page here, and it'll load with the options that I've set. So by default, it's set to newest. It's got all the listings. I didn't set it to featured, and it's set to the hybrid view. Okay. So those are a couple of options on how you can kind of just the basic configurations. Now, if I want to get, let's say I want to get a little bit crazier and I want to have a specific type of search be my default. So let's say, for instance, I only work in the cities of, Draper. I can go and add that city in here. So I basically go through, and let's say I do Sandy, which is the neighboring city. You can begin to configure anything I want. And so let's say by default, I only, I want the price range to be above 300,000, right? So I can kind of begin to choose what's in here. And let's say, I only want it to show residential. I don't want any condos or anything else showing up here. Now, I can set this. Now, a consumer could always come in here and take these features off, right? They can come in here and click this off and remove these and search what they want. But let's say I want my default to be residential, and I want to only showcase these two cities by default because maybe I have a really large area. So I want this to be my default search. So I'm going to configure it the way I want it to. I can even set, the map view, hybrid, whatever I want. And I'm going to grab this URL. So I'm just going to go up here, hit copy. I'm going to come back to my page that I'm working on here, and I'm going to double click on this to get my options. And right here where it says search link, I'm just going to paste that entire link in there and hit save, and hit save again and publish. Now, when I reload my page here, I can see that it's preset the cities, and it's preset the price range and residential. So that's one way that you can kind of pre-configure how you want this set up. So another thing that we're going to talk about with search is you can see on my site here, I've got this thing called popular searches, okay? And I've set this one up, homes between 6 to 108,000 and homes with a pool. So this is something that you can pre-set up. So let's say you've got a lot of people looking for a condo, or you've got a lot of people looking for vacant land, or you just want to make an easier way to do this. So the nice thing about this is it's going to automatically show your popular searches based on what you've put in there. But it's going to show them if they have saved searches. So if they've saved a search, for instance, like if they've come in here, put in some criteria, hit save search, and given it a name, that preset will always show up for them on the site, okay? And then it also shows what their last search criteria is. So on my site, I don't have any of that set up, right? So that's what we're going to do. So let's say I'm going to set this up. Let's think of a criteria here. So let's say I want to do above, homes above 500,000. And I just want to do it for Draper. So let's say this is the popular search I want to create. I'm going to grab that URL. I'm going to come back to my search page. I'm going to click on, double tap on it, and then you'll see over here there's a tab called popular searches. So I'm going to put that in here. I'm going to hit add popular search, and the first field is the link. So this is the link that I created and the link has all the criteria in it that I want. And I'm going to put in the name Draper 500K, and I'm just going to call it that, right? And then it'll allow me to just kind of go through here and add more and more and more of these in. And then I just hit save, save again. Publish. And then I'm going to go back and refresh my page. And now when I go to search, I can see that it has popular searches set up. So Draper 500K, it's going to automatically run that search. So that's a way that you can kind of do popular searches in terms of making sure that you can kind of pre-select those. So is there any questions about that at all? Like, I know it's kind of fast. Did anybody have anything specific they wanted to ask about that?
Jerry, I do have people that want to join the meeting. If you could just add them quickly.
Oh, man. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. You should be able to get in now. Okay. So we will, let me see. Was there any questions that came up on that? If, for instance, you need a different MLS than what you have, or you've moved into an MLS area, the way that you need to add that is you need to call us at customer support, and we can get that MLS added for you. There's some paperwork that has to happen to make sure you're an active member of that MLS. And so those kind of things we can add for you. Okay. Let me jump back in here. Okay, so let's talk about, real quickly, let's talk about lead capture. So I can't remember if your sites were set up by default with this, but you can set up how many times someone can view a property before they're forced to register, okay? So how we're gonna do that is back on our editing pages. I'm gonna go to site details, and I'm gonna go to forced registration. Now I can have it be, they have to register automatically the first time they hit a property, or I can determine how many properties I want them to see prior to them having to register. Now, I typically recommend, I like about 3 properties. I like to have the forced registration. You're gonna get more leads with the forced registration. Some people don't like to do it that way. They like to let people look at whatever they want to. And that's fine as well. You can do it that way. So this is how you would set it. Again, I would save, and then I would publish in order to get that information out there. So let's go and let's talk a little bit more about editing the actual pages of the site. I'm just going to go into one of these pages. I'll just kind of give you an example of how some of these things work. So I'm going to click on edit page. And it takes a few seconds here for everything to kind of load up, but we mentioned this briefly in the last call. All of these different blocks have different functionality and things that you can do and that you can use. And so the main thing that you need to know here is across the top, you have 3 different options. So you have block, content, and details. Now a block allows me to, for instance, grab a block and change the order that it's in. Right, so I can grab these and I can move them up and down. I can decide, hey, I don't like this block, and I can just delete it and remove it. It also allows me to edit the code. If you are a little more tech savvy and want to be able to make some modifications, you can do that. So that's block mode, right? That's what that does. It allows me to move things. It allows me to remove blocks. And then I've got content mode. Now, content mode allows me to do things like change text. Right, so I can change that to whatever I want to. It's gonna change automatically here. I can make this text bold. I can change the font size, all sorts of stuff. Now, on text, if I want to do more options, I can select on details mode. I can select on the text. And this is where I could do things like change the color, change the font family, right? Font size, font weight. So there's a lot of just different options for how this font could look. Line spacing, height, is it uppercase, lowercase, centered, you know, all those sorts of things. So you can kind of begin to play with this, and don't worry about it. Like until you hit save over here, none of these changes are saved. So if I say, hey, you know, I don't like that, I'm just going to reload the page and not save it, and it'll just reload to what I had the previous time. So don't feel like you can't make these changes and adjustments. Now, as you're doing things, as I edit stuff and I get something that I like done, I'm always going to hit save over here. Okay. Just think about it like any kind of file on your computer, right? Once you hit save, that's the new version. So if I get this block set up the way I want it, then I hit save, and I go down here and I mess up the next block, I could just reload the page and it'll have the latest version of the changes that I put on there. Now over here, your details mode, that allows you to do things like change, you know, images. So if I wanted to put a different image here, I can click on details mode, select the image, hit save, and it's going to put the different image that I want to use for that header in there. So that's kind of the options for the 3 different modes inside editing, and everything kind of falls within that. So there's a lot of different blocks that are in here. So what I'd encourage you to do is just go try some of these. So you can try these by just grabbing a block, for instance, like a video block here, and just grab it and drag it to where you want it. Now, let's say, for instance, that didn't end up where I wanted it. I wanted it below this text. I just I go to make sure I'm over in block mode, grab the block, you know, and move it down to where I want it to go. And so sometimes it's a little finicky. You might have to drag it around, play with it a little bit, but it's not a big deal. If it doesn't go where you want it, just grab it again and move it back up there to get it where you want it. So, and then again, like details mode, with this one where it's a video block, it's going to ask for the video ID or the Vimeo ID. So those are the 2 type of video formats that we support. And then if I wanted to change the content over here, I can just simply click on the block and change that content in content mode. So that's probably one of the trickiest things, remembering when to use block mode, when to use details mode. And it's not a big deal if you select on one of these and you don't get the option that you thought of or that you're looking for, just select that, right? And every single one of these buttons, for instance, I can select on that button and I can change, you know, the background colors, you know, the border colors. I can change where this is linking to. So if I'm linking within my site, it'll pull up all of the pages that I can link to. Or if I want to link it to an external page, I can put in the URL there, determine whether I want it to open up in a new window. So there's a lot of different just kind of options for how blocks work. We have things, for instance, if you go down the bottom here, new blocks, these are all our latest blocks that we're using. So let's say, for instance, here, I want to add featured properties. I can select on details mode. And I have all sorts of options here. So I can say, like, let's say, for instance, I want to do, you know, 3 rows, 3 columns. I don't want this first panel here to show up, so I can hide that. Maybe I don't want these buttons here, so I can hide those. You know, I want to conserve some space, so I'm going to put the text over the image. Does it go full screen or does it maintain size? Hover animations, right? Like these have these little animations here. So if I don't want those, I can turn those off. Like maybe I find those distracting, so I can shut them off. And I can say I want to hide the square foot, beds, bath, you know, that sort of a thing, because I want people to click into it. So you can kind of come through here and get this looking the way that you want. And then you can kind of come into MLS. Now, this is where I start to configure what I want to be displayed here. So think of this almost like a little mini search, right? So let's say I want to create a page for a particular community, and I want to use this block to showcase just listings in that community. I'm going to come in here and choose the MLS that I have on my site, and I can put in a particular area. So like I could type in the city name that I'm in. It could be a neighborhood. It could be a school district. So I'm going to choose that city. Now, the other option you have here is I could, for instance, put in my agent ID or my office ID. And a quick tip on that, if you don't know what the MLS is classifying as your agent ID, if you come to one of your listings on your website and you go right here where it says about the listing, we've hidden the IDs right here. So this is going to be your agent ID, your office ID, and your agent ID. So that's what the system, a lot of times people get confused because they think, oh, my agent ID, that's what I log in the MLS with. That's not what it is. It's the ID that's associated with your specific listings, okay? So if I wanted, for instance, to just showcase my listings, I would come in here and grab this ID, go back to my editor and put in my office ID, my agent ID. Now, if you're working with a team, you might put multiple agent IDs. If you're an office site, you just put in the office ID and that'll have listings for everybody within your office. Then let's say I only want to display our listings, right? I'm going to check on that. Now, what's going to happen is because I've got this set to the city of Draper, is only going to show properties in Draper that belong to me. So if I choose to use not a general area, I'm going to go back and take this out because I'm just going to want to use my ID. But in this scenario, I'm going to take out the ID. We're going to do Draper as the city. And then we're going to come into property details. And there's some basic information here. Say, I only want to show, for instance, residential. And maybe I only want to show, 2 bedrooms, baths, whatever I want to do. And then I can go down to property status. And I can set, like, do I want to show everything? Do I want to only show active pendings? By default, it's going to only be active pendings, active with contingencies, and not sold. This is also a really great way if you want to show your sold listings, for instance. You would come in here, pull this data out again, put in my office ID or your agent ID, and I'd come down here and say, I want to show sold listings. So I might create a page that says, here's all of my sold listings, right? And so basically the block is using your agent ID and the status of sold to determine what gets displayed there. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this block. You can use it for featuring homes in a particular area or a particular price range. It can be to showcase your current listings or your office listings or your solds, for instance, as well. So that's just one example of one of the blocks that you can use. One of the blocks I want to talk about is home value. Now, every site has, and we talked about this last week, if you go to your website /home value, you're going to have a home value page that you can drive leads to, for instance. Now, you may want to configure these. So the home value pages are set up by default to not have a header, not have a footer. They're meant to be more of a landing page, but you can change that if you want to. You can add the header footer back in there. But let's say, for instance, I want to change this to how much is your, I want to localize this, right? Your Draper home really worth. I can change that. It didn't like me there. Hold on. And you're going to get to this by going to your page, and a quick way to find this is just type in the word home value, and it's going to get you to your page. And then you're just going to click on edit, and it's going to open up, it's going to open up this page and allow me to change this information. How much is so let's say I want to localize this, your home really worth. It's not liking me right now. But I could change, for instance, if I want to use a video or a carousel, or if I want to change the image in the background, I can come and remove this, and upload a different image. And when I save that and publish it, I'll have a different look. So you might want to start with like going in and localizing that particular property or that piece so that it will be what I want it to be. So one of the other things that we're gonna talk about before we move off the websites is analytics. Now, if you want to use Google tracking, we don't really provide any analytics with the site itself because we use Google Analytics to do most of that, and it's a free tool. So if, for instance, you want to use Google Analytics, you're going to go sign up for your Google Analytics account. You're just going to paste your tracking code in right here, and that'll allow you to track, how many people are on your site. And there's a lot of stuff in here. Like if you get into running Google AdWords, there's Google labels and IDs and all that kind of stuff. If you're running Facebook ads, you can track those ads using the Facebook pixel. So any of that kind of tracking code that you want to have on your site, you would come in here and put it in under analytics. Integrations, there's a couple of different CRMs that we integrate with. So if you're working with any of those CRMs here, you can connect and use those. You can connect your Gmail account to follow boss, Mossy work. So there's a couple of different options here of different CRMs that we connect with, in addition to the one that we provide with the site. And you can see which options we have here. Custom code. You have the ability to kind of put any kind of custom code in that you want. Now, one I want to talk about is page redirects. So if you're coming off of your old site, you may, for instance, have a URL that was indexed really well, and you want to make sure that if that indexes or that URL is still out there, that people can get to it. So for instance, on my site, I've got the buy page set up at, this test account that I've got going on /buy. But let's say, oh, okay. But let's say the old page was set up at, buyer, for instance. So I could set, sorry, keeps wanting my full URL here. You're going to grab the full URL and you're going to paste that in there. And then I'm going to put in the URL of the page that I want it to go to now as my new page. So if it was buyer before, and now on my new site, it's /buyers, I can put in that URL and I can set up those redirects to go to the different URLs that I want them to. So that's something to keep in mind. If you had specific URLs that you were using on your old site and you want them redirected to the new pages on your site, you're just going to put in what the old URL was and the new URL on your new site that you want it to go to, and it'll redirect for you. So that's a good thing to know, especially as you're having a new site. You want to make sure any of those URLs that are out there that you were using, that you might have on print material or something else, that it gets redirected to the right place. So, okay, we're going to talk about a few of the other features behind the scenes here. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Every site comes with a blogging tool already included, and it's a really, really simple tool. All you've got to do is you can go in here and you can see your current blog posts. You can create a new blog, or you can search for a blog by title. If you want to, for instance, edit a blog, you just click on edit, and it's very, very simple. Like, it allows you to put a featured image in over here. It allows you to put your text in here. So I'm going to go back, for instance, say I'm going to create a new post. I just put in my post title, new post. I could go to my library. I can browse and upload an image that I want to use for the headline. And then I could put in my content. So any text that I have, and this looks like any blog editor. If I want to put a picture in here, I can upload a file. If I want to add a video in here, I can add a video. One of the things that is important to note here is I can put in tags. So for instance, if I want to filter, we have some blocks that allow you to put a blog on a page and filter by the tag. So the tag might be, new homes. And so later on, I can use the blogging blocks to filter by those tags. So there's a lot there. But the basic thing is I can put in my text, put in my images, and I can go ahead and upload that to the blog. And the blog pages already exist on your site. They're just hidden. So if I go, let's first look here. There's my blog posts right here. You can see by default there is not going to be anything there. But soon as I post some content, that will begin to show up here when I do my first blog post. And then all you've got to do is, you can see right now that it's hidden. So once I'm ready, I just go and I hit show in navigation. and publish the site, and that will make that blog post so that it appears on my site. So then it'll then show up as a menu item in the top menu. Okay, images. These are just images that you have associated, associated with your site. These are all the images that I've uploaded to the builder that I have access to use. I can upload them here. You can also upload them through the editor, the website editor. There's some other images that are just images that come with the site that you're welcome to use as well. So I want to talk about listings. We've got about 10 more minutes here. So I wanted to talk about this area here. So across the top, you have listings. Listings is broken up into two pieces. You have MLS listings and you have exclusive listings. And to understand this, MLS listings is anything that you put into the MLS that's under your ID. Again, if you come here and there's nothing here, you're going to go to edit MLS info and you're going to choose the MLS that you're part of and you're going to put in your agent ID and it's going to pull your listings in here automatically. So with MLS listings, we have the ability to what we call enhance a current listing. So this does not replace the data that's on the MLS. This just replaces the data that's on your site. Okay, so let's say, for instance, my MLS doesn't give me great photos or they limit the number of photos I want. I can come in here and I can either say use the MLS photos or I could take that off and it will delete all those photos and allow me to re-upload new ones. So I don't want to delete those. I'm going to use them. I could also upload additional photos here if I want to. But one of the main advantages here is I can add, for instance, any kind of video or Matterport tour. It says Matterport tour embed code, but I could put a YouTube video here if I wanted to. I could also change the virtual tour link on that listing to go to anything I want. So a lot of times with MLSs, they'll make you have a non-branded, for instance, virtual tour. But let's say I want to put my own branded one on here. I could override that tour link that comes from the MLS. So if I go and view this listing, so this is our standard page for properties, but now I can see that my Matterport tour is embedded right into the page. So as agents or people are searching for my listings, they're going to be able to go here and see this information. So, and it's just embed code. So this could be, right now I've got it set up as Matterport tour, but it might be a YouTube video. We've got people who use this for, they've got horse properties in Texas and they'll embed, property maps in here. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use that particular piece. So the second part of this is exclusive listings. Now we call it exclusive listings because these are listings that are not on the MLS. So listings that you add here do not get updated from the MLS. You have to keep them updated yourself. But this is a great way, for instance, if I have a coming soon listing or I have a pocket listing that I want to put in here, but I can also pull over one of my current listings and I can copy it over. I could also go in here and add it by MLS number if I know what the number is, and it'll pull it in here. And this allows me to create what we call single property pages. So if I go look at one of these, for instance, you can see that it's not using the standard property page. It has different options in here. I've got my embedded tours. And when I go in here, let's see if this one's a different one. Yeah, so this is a different template. So there's a couple of different template options that I could use. So I can see here's an example of, I've got the video and I've got a plot map, pulled in here. And these are customizable. Let's say, for instance, I want to go ahead and edit this particular property here. Now, I could have manually put all this information in, but I chose to just copy it from the MLS because it's one of my listings and I want to make one of these exclusive listing templates. And I could go in here and delete photos. I can change the order of how they're going to show up on the listing. But the main thing here is over on the left-hand side, I have where it says page, detailed page template. And you can see there's 3 different options that I can choose from. So let's say I'm going to choose template 3 and I'm going to hit customize. it's then going to pull up this screen here where I can kind of see a preview of what this looks like. I can go in and change this information that's right here, maybe I want to change the acres, latitude, longitude. You don't need to mess with that. If I want to change the main photo that shows up, it pulls all the photos from the property in. So I can say, hey, that's the one I want to use for the main one. The secondary image, I might want to use, the one of the pool. And you can kind of begin to go through here and save these, and the gallery, which photos do I want to include in the gallery? And I just select all the images that I want to have available when they select on the gallery. And I hit done. And then all I got to do is go hit view. And, I've got these changes to that particular property. So this is a really great way to highlight a listing, to create a unique page. And this is something you can showcase to your sellers and say, hey, we're going to create a unique site for you. A lot of agents will go get a vanity URL, so 123 Main Street, and then they'll just redirect it to this page on their site. So that's one thing that's really great about that. Exclusive listings, if you're working with a builder and you want to put the builder listings on here, you can do that sort of thing. And then in the editor, I'll just show you this really quick. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to showcase these listings that I have in there. Maybe that's, for instance, on my homepage. I'm going to come here and where it says exclusive properties, I'm going to drag that onto my page. And when I publish this, it will show the listings that I put in my exclusive properties area. Okay. So a lot of times people will come in here, they'll put that on the page. We'll go grab like a basic content thing here. And, I'll put my, exclusive listings, right? So that's how I could showcase those on my homepage, for instance. And I can call this whatever I want: coming soon, exclusive, whatever I want it to be. The final thing we're going to kind of go over today is the roster. Now, this really only applies to those of you who are franchise owners or running an office. This is where you're going to come in and manage your agent. So first thing you can see here is, who are the agents in the office? If I don't want them, for instance, to show up on the website, let's say I have an admin and I don't want her showing up on the site, but she's in the system already, I can come in here and choose to hide that person. I can then also edit. And this is where I have all the agent information. So name, title, phone number, email, address. And then you get into stuff like, which office are they in? Keywords. So this is searchable. So if they speak Spanish, for instance, I can put that in as a keyword. Their bio, their favorite things, their qualifications. Media. So if I want to put multiple, photos of them in here, I can drag and drop those photos in here so they can have multiple photos. Testimonials. You can add testimonials in here, so those will show up on their profile pages. We have a stats area. So if I want to put, for instance, like 10 years in the business or over, 10 million homes sold, whatever it is. And then social media links. So you can put in their Facebook, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. So all this information gets edited here. That's what pulls through to the roster pages. And that's the information that'll show up. So you as an agent, you'll also have the ability to edit yourself. So this is where you'd come in and put your information, your social media links, that sort of stuff. So it pulls through to the site. Okay. That was a lot of information, but that's the basic overview of how the system works. Anybody have any questions before we get off here? Anything that I didn't cover that you want to know a little bit more about? Let's see. So Steve asks, hey, can we pull in MLS listings? Yes, like you can go in and pull a listing directly from the MLS into the exclusive listing area, and it'll pull all the photos, content, everything, and then you could go in and remove anything that you want to there. So, okay, so that's it, guys. That's the website editing piece of this, and it's a lot of information. Like a lot of times I'll do training on one specific thing for almost an hour. But I wanted to give you guys an overview of some of those options and things that are in there. And I just encourage you, go in, play with it. Don't worry about screwing stuff up. You can always delete it. But go in and try some of those things, editing some of those pages. Go set your searches up so the defaults are set up the way that you want them to. And as always, if you have any questions, you can, on our sites, you will always see that we have this little chat widget that sits down at the bottom, this little chat bot. So if you get in here and you just get lost or confused, or you mess something up, just go ahead and chat with support. That's a great way to get a hold of our chat team, and they can help you really quickly figure out what's going on. You can always call in to our customer support. That's off of our website, Blue360. You can see the address there, or you can always email support@blue360.com. And we'd love to help you guys out with anything that you need. So that is it for today. Thank you, everybody. Everyone have a good 4th of July. And I think we're going to be setting up another one of these here for in a couple of weeks to talk about the CRM. So thanks, everybody.